There's always going to be a certain element of disagreement amongst the weather models, especially when you look several days in advance, but then there's other times when there just seems to be even more disagreement than usual. This is precisely what I've been noticing over the last several days in both the short and long term, which is why my last video considered two potential scenarios of how that climactic clash later this month could unfold. I'll save that for the next video, but today I wanted to focus more on some of the things which are going to occur as we start the new week. If you've been keeping up with my recent forecast, you'll know that this tremendous area of high pressure covering much of Europe has been a main talking point, which makes sense because it's not only affecting weather conditions for those directly under its influence, but it's also having an indirect effect for others. Take for example the UK, Ireland, the Iberian Peninsula, and France. All of those areas are basically on the fringe of the anticyclone, so they are not seeing as much of a direct influence. This is allowing lower pressure to dominate and gradually make further advancements into Europe, which is not quite what weather model guidance was suggesting just a few days ago. Instead, there was a lot of disagreement over how effective this anticyclone would be in blocking inclement weather. Obviously, we're seeing the evidence that it turned out to be a little weaker, and just this one factor alone is changing the forecast for many of us. This system over France gradually makes its way further east going into Monday, and with colder air already in place, some pockets of snow breaks out in the Benelux and Germany. Looking towards Iberia for a brief moment, we see that slow-moving Atlantic low finally moving through with widespread rainfall and some thunderstorms on Tuesday and Wednesday, while snowfall continues across Central Europe and even into the Balkans as moisture keeps pushing into the colder air. This is the potential snowfall accumulation through Thursday, February 13th. I wouldn't take exact numbers as something set in stone, but I will point out those higher numbers in Central Europe. This is a possibility if that low ends up stalling out over the region because of high pressure blocking it from making further progress. Across the Balkan Peninsula, I would look out for snow mainly in the higher terrain, and then in Turkey, a lot more heavy snow is on its way in the coming days, particularly in the central and eastern portion of the country. In terms of precipitation in general, it's going to remain very dry across the Nordic and Baltic countries, extending down into the eastern half of the Balkan Peninsula. Turkey and its vicinity, on the other hand, will see persistent rainfall in low elevations and plenty of snow for the higher ground like the previous map showed. And then further west, we see widespread precipitation as a result of a few different systems. The flood risk which I talked about on my last video for the Mediterranean continues today, but becomes more and more focused over Sicily. And then for Monday through Thursday, the main areas to keep an eye on is central and southern Portugal, the Adriatic coast down to the Ionian Sea, and coastal areas of Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. That's going to be all for this quick update, but I appreciate you tuning in as always. As the forecast for the coming days and even weeks continues to evolve, you can be sure I'll keep you updated on everything you need to know, so consider subscribing if you have not already.